We're on to the last part of the book of Psalms today. So this is Psalms 126 to 150. I'm going to start this actually with reading a whole psalm, quite a short one, don't worry. And this is one that got quoted quite a lot in my house when I was growing up, because it was a good, well, not a cop-out, but I guess it was sort of intended as that. It's tiny, so I have to put my glasses on. It goes, "My heart is not proud, Lord. My eyes are not haughty. I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me. But I have calmed and quieted myself. I am like the weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child, I am content. Israel, put your hope in the Lord, both now and forevermore." And it was the bit in there, the "I will not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me to understand" sort of thing, that got quoted at home. And it was, if you ever had a question for something, my father would answer it with that. Actually, my mum as well, to some extent. And we just go, oh, in fact, they wouldn't even bother to quote it. You could just say Psalm 131. So I was looking forward to doing that one. Interestingly, I mean, obviously, it smacks of cop-out, doesn't it? It's like, oh yeah, the answer to this is too difficult, so we'll just quote this psalm, which conveniently says that we don't have to have the answer at all. Except that it would be obviously the case that there will be things that we can't possibly know the answers to anyway. So as much as it's cop-out, it's also, if you didn't see that, you'd be a bit sort of like, well, hang on, we some sort of acknowledgement that this stuff should be too big for humans to understand is valid. So, yeah, I quite like that one anyway. Next, we go to Psalm 135. Verse 5 talks about our Lord is greater than all gods, which suggests that they think that there are other gods. I'm sort of doing that and being a little bit obtuse, but at the same time, this sort of thing comes up a lot, and you start to wonder, do people think there are other gods? I don't really know. And they did talk about idols that have mouths but can't speak. And okay, yes, they're acknowledging it's just a stuffed toy has a mouth but can't speak, so it kind of could be an idol. But yeah, I don't know. It's sort of a weird one. But the things that keep coming up, you leave you sort of stuck with what to do with them. Psalm 137, by the rivers of Babylon, which I thought was a song by Boney M, but yeah, there we go. We then have Psalm 139, which is one I guess is a sort of special place in my heart, because it was one of my dad's other favourite ones and is actually engraved on the back of his headstone. It talks about such knowledge being too wonderful for me, which very much ties in with Psalm 131. But verse 14 talks about, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And that is indeed the bit that's on the back of his gravestone. And I guess there's a lot in that, isn't it? It's if God was creating us with free will to do what we like and can hurt ourselves, hurt each other and all the rest of it, it would make sense that there was some fear in creating us. Whether it's like got a difficult concept for God to have fear, I don't know, and obviously would have known what the outcome was. But as a parent, you need to let your child go out into the world and do things. There's some fear in that. But I presume there's some sort of godlike equivalent to that. But yeah, no, I quite like that one anyway. Psalm 147: the Lord delights in those who fear Him. And they talk about who put their hope in His unfailing love. Again, I think that idea we talked about before with fear, I don't think necessarily means fear. I did think it meant fear, because it just fear your God from the Old Testament, well, still in the Old Testament, but from much earlier on. It does seem that fear in this context isn't supposed to be that, because that's completely incongruous with those who put their hope in Him, His unfailing love. So, yeah, fear seems to be more like respect, I think. But yeah, for the Psalms overall, I'm sort of torn, because there's some great stuff in there, but it's a different one because, as I said at the beginning, some of this stuff is not necessarily useful to read what someone else thinks God is doing. Like the book of Job, for example, it's that same problem, isn't it? It's a made-up story that has nothing to do with actual God. So yeah, what are you supposed to do with that? Because the person who came up with it could just be wrong. These people saying these psalms. I mean, there's some of these psalms, people talk about wanting God to do terrible things to their neighbours, but that's to conflict with love your neighbour as yourself. So, yeah, it's that human element, albeit someone thought these should go in the Bible. So, yeah, it's a difficult one to do, but it's something I can't quite get past. It is, though, a useful general consensus of opinion. I mean, it's across time because Moses is in there and David's in there, and there's hundreds and hundreds of years between them. So clearly these psalms are collected over a very long period. But it's interesting how people interpreted what had been written at the time. There's one thing that's a bit odd in that there's mention a few times about some sort of afterlife type thing and resurrection, whatever. But I haven't seen anywhere else in the Bible that talks about that. So either I've completely missed it, or probably I've just completely missed it, haven't I? But I don't remember seeing it. And I'm trying to read this thing properly. So I don't know if where has that idea come from that there is some sort of life after death when nothing has been said so far. Strange. I guess this whole thing with David is a big thing in here, and that's twisting my whole idea of what sin is as well, actually, in a positive way, I think, in growth sort of mindset. The idea that God is more interested in your enthusiasm for him than he is in whether you sin in the sense of naughty deeds, because that's tying into my idea that sin is less about those naughty deeds and more about what you're aiming for in life. So David, hugely enthusiastic about God, but would go and get people killed to get nice ladies. So his overall aim seems to be right in terms of God, that idea of sin being missing the mark. So overall he seems to be on the right path, but just deviates and does naughty things, then comes back. And that seems to go down very well. And that does tie in with that idea of naughty deeds are not necessarily that important. Obviously there's a risk in that idea that as long as we're repentant, we can do what we like, but I don't think that probably really works. It's one thing that occurs to me is actually one of my dad's favourite hymns, or I think probably his favourite hymn, was one called "Thine Be the Glory," and it's got this real gusto about "Yay God" and all the rest of it. Very enthusiastic. And it does seem there's some sort of joy for people in expressing their delight in God, and it does sound like that's what God likes, or at least that's where I'm shifting to at this point anyway. I skipped over mentioning when we went to book 5. Was it book 5 or book 4? Anyway, through Psalms, just because I didn't find it very interesting, the distinction. And the last bit was there's been mention of Son of God and Son of Man, but neither of which seeming to refer to Jesus. So not quite sure how you're supposed to distinguish between Jesus being a Son of God / Son of Man and these people who seem to be claiming that same sort of thing. It's a bit weird, but it feels like it has the potential to detract from who Jesus said he was, if other people have already said they were that. So I guess it is something I'm going to have to deal with at some point. But anyway, Book of Psalms, I did enjoy that. It's quite a long slog. That's a big old chunk of the Bible. And questionable in terms of who wrote it, but, interesting ideas at least, and it still helps shift my thinking on it. Next one to Book of Proverbs, and we'll find out what's in that.